Leah, hi. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a hot minute. Yeah.
Yeah, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Lovely.
Hey, hi, Guy. How's it going? Kova. Jane is popping on. Hi, Jane. Good to see you. Oh, look, and
So
there's Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Need some more Regen Intel fellows joining too. Hi, Saeed.
welcome, welcome,
Hi.
welcome. It is so lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces. I am Alessandra Vega, and I'm helping Regen Intel with moderating, and I'm also Regen Intel fellow. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to connect on DMs as well. Before kicking off, we want to welcome you all to this first Regen Intel Ask Me Anything with Chad Frischmann, CEO and founder of Regen Intel, Mamta Mehra, co-founder of Regen Intel, and a few of our fellow community members from cohort 1, cohort 2, and cohort 3. Just to kick off with today's agenda, we'll kick off with a brief presentation by Chad Frischmann, and then we will hold space to answer any and all your questions. With that, I'll hand the mic over to Chad, and we'll kick off today's presentation. Side note, we will be sharing the recording and the Zoom chat as well in a follow-up email with some rates and some more information about the course. So please be on standby for that. Awesome.
Thank you, Ale. Sorry? Thank you, Ale. No worries. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Really happy to have this opportunity to be with you all for the next, hour or so to talk about Regen Intel. And this is definitely an Ask Me Anything. So we're going to get into a section later on where you can ask me anything. But we're also going to kick it off with a little bit of a intro to the Regen Intel course, because we're about to launch the next cohort number 5 in January. So I want to do a quick introduction to Regen Intel and the course itself. And then we'll dive into some Q&A after hearing from some of our Regen Intel fellows. Now, I do want to stress that this is an AMA, so you can ask me anything about anything that's on your mind, including the course, but not exclusive to the course. I want to make sure that this is a space that you feel comfortable to ask anything. And we can ask anything about climate change, sustainability, regeneration, because you know what? That's all part of Regen Intel. So what is Regen Intel? Regen Intel is a public benefit partnership. What does a public benefit mean? It's the closest thing to a nonprofit you can get in the for-profit world as an official U.S. entity. And it means that the work that we do is mission-oriented, mission-derived, and the revenue that we generate as a company goes back into the mission. And so that's what distinguishes us as a public benefit company. What is Regen Intel's mission? Well, it's nothing short than to activate humanity to become a planet-positive species. We'll get into what that means in a second. But in short, it essentially is the most audacious thing I know that I have ever embarked on doing with my team and community, which goes way beyond just solving for climate change, because you have to solve for climate change in order to become a planet-positive species. So it's a step towards a more regenerative future. And what does Regen Intel do essentially? Well, we're a global advisory. So we, advise organizations on how to become regenerative leaders and how to multi-solve for the challenges different organizations, whether they're corporations or investors or policymakers or NGOs, are having in order to multi-solve for climate and sustainability and embedded with regenerative principles. And we are also, in addition to being this advisory, we're also an education platform. And so that's what we're going to talk to you a little bit more about today. But again, we can talk about anything. And Regen Intel Education we're designing a 4-tiered leveled up certified training in order to train folks with the right skills, mindsets, and community in order to be effective leaders of a regenerative future and to also be themselves stewards, guides, and advisors to organizations at all different scales in order to become more regenerative. And so this is really a program that's centered around how to help support, guide, and steward implementers to actually do the solutions, to implement technologies, practices, behavior change that can help solve the great challenges that we're facing. So it's really this tagline around implementers and not spectators is really about how do we move outside of the space of simply being a witness to a polycrisis, witness to the changes that we're facing, and instead be an active role in implementing a future forward vision of what that becoming a planet positive species. And at the crux of this, it's really how we're moving beyond the systems we're operating in today, which are inherently exploitative and extractive. We learn all about this in the course. Move beyond that sort of business as usual system, and even sort of moving beyond the sustainability framework that we have designed, which is essentially how do we sustain the systems that we're operating in within our planetary boundaries. But how do we actually move beyond to something more ambitious, more audacious, more planet positive? And that's how do we become regenerative, going beyond the systems we're operating in, beyond just simply sustaining the systems we're operating in our planetary boundaries, and becoming more and more regenerative. And so we learn how to multi-solve for climate change. How do we solve for climate? How do we solve for our sustainability goals? But how do we do so in ways that are embedded with regenerative principles so that we can move forward faster to the future that we actually want? Because we have to recognize that sustainability, simply sustaining the systems that we're in, is just not enough. But where does this background come from? So I mentioned that Regen Intel is a public benefit partnership. And what that means is that we're a collection of partners that actually have our origins in an organization called Project Drawdown. Most of the original team of Project Drawdown who created and who did the design the Drawdown solutions framework and did all this other research have all come together as a community, as co-founders, and launched Regen Intel. And this is because one of the core visions and values of Project Drawdown, when Paul Hawken, Amanda Joy Ravenhill, and myself launched it back in 2014, was how do we see climate as a catalyst? How do we find the right system of solutions that can not only solve for climate change and begin to reverse global warming, creating global cooling, but also go beyond that to really change fundamentally the systems that we're operating in. So from the very DNA of when we launched that was always from drawdown to regeneration. And so Regen Intel, after 8 years of me leading Project Drawdown, I created Regen Intel to be the next evolution of the work that we are collectively doing in order to, again, activate humanity to become a planet positive species. And what does that mean? It's a species that contributes more than it's benefiting from the well-being of the planet and all life. So how do we shift our economic and social systems to have life at the center of our human systems and kind of realign to that more natural state of being? And how do we do so with technologies, practices, behavior change, ways of being, mindsets that exist today that we know can make that shift forward? So the way we do this is with deep authenticity and integrity, joyful inclusion. We're mission derived, which means that everything that we do is in service to the mission. We're not driving the mission. The mission isn't ours to own and to drive and to be, with our blinders on, narrowly focused. It's how do the work that we do, all the work that we do is spurred from that vision and mission in order to create a more regenerative, just, equitable, and inclusive society for all life. So these are the values of our organization at Regen Intel, obviously also deeply collaborative and science guided. And this is what we're doing through the education program. This is the kind of goals that we embed, or the values that we're embedding as an organization, the work we do, and of course, within the education program. Now, I mentioned that we have a 4-tiered leveled up certified training. We've actually are in the process of designing that full system, but what we did launch to start with is the first tier. Called the Foundations Course. This is a grounding in the core mindset centered on planetary and human well-being, the way we can approach the way we operate in our economy and in our society that centers life and regenerative mindsets in the work that we do, a deep understanding of the challenges, the polycrises that we're facing, the underpinning meta crisis that fuels the polycrisis, and more importantly, shifting to understanding what are the real technologies, practices, behavior change, and ways of being that can help us solve those challenges. But also, it's a very practical course over the course of the 15 weeks where we learn how to implement solutions, both inner development solutions, as well as external outer solutions from real world practitioners who are part of our faculty. But why are we all doing this? Why is this coming together in this way? Why do we think it's important to build this foundations course and then the level more tiers that we'll be launching in later in 2025 and 2026? Well, because we're entering into a climate solutions economy. Climate change is the greatest challenge we've ever faced as a species. It's one of our own creation. And we see increasingly more and more urgent, pressing need to implement technologies and practice that will help us solve this great challenge. That much it's clear. But when we're entering into a climate solutions economy, and we're wanting to get a job in that economy, or we're trying to create our own organization to create impact in the economy, we want to make sure we do it well. So then we're not siloed thinking, focusing solely on one problem, one challenge, or just on climate change itself, but how do we multi-solve? How do we see the different system of solutions and their cascading benefits that can not only help us solve climate, but also help us solve our sustainable development goals and move beyond to creating that regenerative economy that we feel is really essential for a thriving and abundant species on this planet. So we're hyper-focused on that multidimensionality. And you may have already taken some climate courses. There are many out there. There's a whole ton in the US and a whole ton globally. But this one is a little bit different. It's a deep and yet holistic and comprehensive view into systems thinking and the mindset, but also the technology and science that is of how to implement these solutions, and the economics of it all, and the practical reality of it, but without focusing with carbon tunnel syndrome or myopically focusing on any one issue area. How do we see this as a prism through which we can multi-solve many challenges? The course is designed, of course, across three core pillars. We have master classes, deep dives, and solutions in practice. As I mentioned, master classes are that sort of mindset shift, theories, concepts, really in order to help us see the world and ourselves in different ways, understanding the systems that we're operating in, and the solutions, as well as ways that we can approach our inner and outer development. Our sector deep dives, again, instructed by the entire original senior team at Project Drawdown, are all members of Regenintel, and they're providing deep dives into each sector, from electricity generation, built environment, transportation, land use, oceans, food systems, human systems, etc. Deep dive into the technologies, practices, behavior change, barriers, challenges, and the solutions and economics of each of these sectors. And then we have a third pillar called solutions in practice, where we learn from those who've applied that theory and those solutions into the real world, again, through both inner development, skill development, as well as outer solutions in the world, from business to governance to finance to our own personal development. So these are the three core pillars. I won't go into detail. We're going to provide this to you a little bit later, but Each of the master classes, deep dives and solutions of practice, there are 28 in total across the 15 weeks that you could be participating in this course. It's really, Renee Lertzman, a good friend of mine, described it as the royalty of climate and sustainability. In many ways, these folks represent some of the leading thinkers and doers in climate, sustainability, and regeneration. You're going to keep hearing these three words over and over again because it's so important to recognize that these are all interrelated. They are not separate disciplines. They all are interrelated. So these are really kind of a who's who of people who are authentically representing solutionists in this space. And as you go through this course, which we'll get into some details, I think logistics a bit later, but it's not only a learning course. You're going to go through that learning journey. And you'll hear the word quest and journey a lot in our course because we do model ourselves on the journey. And we often say that, in the journey to regeneration, there are going to be many quests that you embark on. One of them is your climate quest. And when you start the course, this is your final project. You're going through about 15 weeks of the course. You're going to be diving into a real world actionable a quest or that is something meaningful, passionate to yourself for your own individual goals and ambitions, and how you apply the learnings of our course into the real world, into something that you can take action on when the course completes. These can be a businesses, organizations plan, it could be a research paper, it could be a book project, etc. We already, just this month, one of our climate quests was one of our fellows on their climate quest was presenting the climate quest as a keynote on sustainable brands stage. Another is already launching his book on climate, a guide to climate solutions. And there are so many other types of quests that you go on, but these are real world actionable projects that we help you along the way to make real. So it's not just about learning, your learning journey, it's about how you apply that learning journey in the real world. As I mentioned, it's about 15 weeks. Cohort 5 starts in end of January and goes through May. All the sessions are going to be live and online, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our cohorts are incredibly diverse. They come from nearly every time zone, from Yoshi, who was on this call, who was calling in from Indonesia, to Megan from Austin, Texas, to Bjorn who is in Europe, to Paul, who was in, I believe, Washington State, or Oregon, and LA. Oh, oops, California, my bad. But we have fellows from all over Asia, all over the African continent, all over Europe, and all over the Americas chiming in. So this is the best time that we've been found to bring that truly diverse group together. It's also an incredibly intergenerational group. We have our youngest fellow is 23 and the oldest is 65. They come from all walks of life, some who've had 20 or 30 years experience in sustainability and climate, some who've never taken a climate course in their life. So it's incredibly intergenerational, interdisciplinary, and international course. Application process. These are some of the logistics. Apply today, go online, feel free to apply. There are a bunch of early bird discount rates and discounts that are available to folks. And I'm gonna stop there so that we can really get into more of the questions and the EMA. But I wanted to take that time, this initial 10 minutes or so, or however long it's been, to really talk about the course itself and offer this time now for any questions that have cropped up, whether it's about the course or anything else that's on your mind. So I'll pause there. Ali, is this the right time for questions?
Yes. So we also wanted to take a quick moment to also hold space to a few of our fellows who have decided to join us today. They are open to connecting as well, but they'd love to share a little bit more about their experience with Regenintel. So yes, we want to hold that space, and then we'll hold space for Q&A. So Paul, you are up first.
Good morning, everyone, or good day, wherever you are in the world. I want to start off by saying that if since you are here, and if you are even remotely thinking about taking this course, just jump, go do it, plant the seed. It's so worthwhile. And I loved my experience in the flagship cohort. I was looking for something that would give me the foundation, that was robust and accessible to me as a social scientist and somebody who is coming in with a little bit and coming in with a passion, but not necessarily the hard science or the network, right? I didn't necessarily know people in this space at all. I feel like I got everything and more that I was looking for. I have a foundation. I am bringing these things to my workplace. My climate quest, which was about green roofing and establishing green roofs as a medical modality, has not totally blossomed, but it's given me ideas for a PhD project, for other things that I can take into the world, how I might move and where I want to go for the next 10 years. I mean, that's how impactful it was for me. Was I have things that I could look towards the future with and feel really strongly and passionately about. So I think you should definitely make the jump and plant that seed.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Paul. And Paul and I, Yoshi, Bjorn, who we would love to give the space to next, we were all fellows in the same cohort. Okay, Bjorn, you are up next.
Yes, thanks. Hi, good evening for me, sitting in France right now. And yeah, for me, I had done some other climate courses before. I can try to look like the smiley that you had on your slides chat there. And what I was looking for is, on the one hand, not a course that is, again, top level. I had covered those, knowing that sustainability is not enough. We need to move to regeneration, sort of a bit more the general parts that had gotten me started. I also didn't want any course where there's this sort of superficially positivistic spin about we can do everything and we can just solve it without actually facing the reality that looks pretty challenging right now for us. And I also didn't want any of these like techno-optimistic quick fixes. I believe right now it's AI that's supposed to fix everything and solve us all. And so I stumbled upon regenintel, and I was really happy with my choice. It had both the bigger overview, and then as Chad lined out with the different speakers, going into different sectors, different industries, and actually hearing about what is happening there, what could be happening there. So connecting those two things and doing all of those deep dives, was pretty much what I was looking for, and got all of that, as Paul said, and beyond. So very much enjoyed the journey, and also the other people that I met along the way. Thanks for that opportunity.
Beautiful. Thanks, Bjorn. And I echo your words as well. Now we would like to give the space to one of our not current, but one of our most recent fellows as well, Megan from cohort 2.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Dankovich. I always love and appreciate when I get an email from Ali or Mamta asking me to join to come talk about this program, because it was truly transformational. I'll give you a little of my background. I left a CEO role running a tech agency back in mid-February, and really found myself sort of midlife crisis, needing to really examine my professional career and decide how can I more align my personal values of wanting to be more planet positive with what I'm doing professionally. I really felt there's more that I could be contributing than I was. And I stumbled across Regenintel and was nervous filling out the application, wondering, will they even accept me? And I remember asking Chad, why did you accept me? I'm not like some of these other participants who have already worked in the space somehow, or seem to have come with some level of knowledge on it. And he was wonderful, and just reminding me that the mindset of understanding regenerative solutions and the cascading benefits and the cascading threats that come with all of it, and the interdependency of all the polycrises, is really critical no matter what role you play in this world. And I took that to heart and really threw myself into this program. So glad that I did. If you are at all sitting on the fence, I will tell you that it exceeded all expectations in terms of the quality of not just the content and the breadth of the content, but the quality of the experts and the professionals that are 100% the leaders in their facet of this world that otherwise you would not have gotten exposed to. And I just think that that was just such a highlight for me. Also a highlight is the tenor of, or just the culture, the vibe that you get from everybody, from Chad and Mamta and Ryan and Zhao and Ali to everybody else, is exactly as Chad described, of that joyful inclusion, that authenticity, that kind of we're all in level ground, no matter who you are, where you're from. We're all here in this charge together to make the planet better. And I just found that warm reception so refreshing, coming from such a dog-eat-dog world. And so I was just really blown away by the warmth of the group. And the last thing I'll say is, if there's three things I really took away from everything, it was the importance of systems thinking. It was the importance of understanding the interdependencies of our world and all of the challenges. And it was also the importance of remembering that the solutions are there. Really smart people have already figured this out. We just need more people behind it to figure out how we can scale and fund and continue to innovate faster. And that was probably the silver lining, and I guess the light, that you continue to be reminded of. And just have lots of pen and paper or your fingers ready to jot down the voluminous number of resources. There are so many resources that you're going to hear on a day-to-day basis. I would sit on the call for an hour and a half, then I'd spend another 3, 4 to 5 hours just going down the rabbit holes of researching all the resources that came out of every class. It's, again, just invaluable. So worth the investment in yourself, so worth the investment and getting to meet people from all over the globe who feel exactly the way you do. And just to that point, having the perspective of so many people who did join my cohort from around the globe, Nepal, Pakistan, Kenya, Malawi, that is invaluable to hear the perspective of people who are truly living these crises and feeling it very differently than someone like me in Austin, Texas. And that was just so profound. So yeah, I really can't say enough about it. And I am open to anybody reaching out to me. I'm happy to talk.
Love. Thank you so much, Megan. And these are such enriching and real, heartfelt shares that I also echo. So thanks for that. Now we'll hand the mic over to Chad, and we'll be hosting the open AMA.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for your patience in going through that. This is our first AMA, so we're got a little deep into that course, but such lovely words from Megan and Bjorn and Paul. It's just I'm a little embarrassed how nice those were. It's so nice. But you also, as a little benefit, is you do also get a very, very cool Zoom background when you finish the course. As you can see, everyone gets a cool background, and you get to pick which one of the many cool ones that is particularly sings to you. But I'd love to open this up to questions from, this is Ask Me Anything at this point. And we do have a nice backbench. So, with Mamta here and Richard and Yoshi and Paul and Ale and Bjorn and Megan. So this is a good backbench of folks, whether it's about the course, about anything else that's on your mind. I want to take the next, how long do we have? About 30 minutes or so?
Yes, more or less.
Beautiful. So let's take the next 30 minutes and I'm here to answer anything. I see Mark. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Chad. Hey, guys. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, I so appreciate, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about the difference between regenerability and sustainability. And often I see sustainability as a slower way to die because it's a do no harm philosophy. And we actually have to start doing good, one, remediating the damage we have done, and two, look at how we can add value to a system. And I really appreciate the whole systems approach that you have articulated here. The one thing that did come up for me was that, you mentioned the SDGs and you mentioned, carbon and carbon credits. And to me, both SDGs and carbon credits are a big red herring. Because if we just lower and focus on carbon emissions, we're really not going to solve the issues of climate change. That really has to do with emissions and consumption and our supply chains, and that's what it's really going to take. And the SDGs, there's 17 of them, run by one of the most bureaucratic, dysfunctional organizations in the world, and yet we still hold that as a standard. So, like, how can we set up different standards? How can we unify that? When I've, for instance, spoken before the UN in Geneva, it was amazing to me how siloed they are. Like, farming doesn't talk to water or energy. And it's like, well, how do you grow crops and do agriculture without water and energy? So, how can we through this group, and this is the crux of the question with that foundation, Chad, how do we create new metrics for actual regenerability and change? And does this
sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
no, and does this actually look at addressing the actual things that can make a difference and the profound practical applications of regenerability? I'll stop there.
Mark, of course, that's a big question. But I'll start with a couple things. First, I don't think you will have heard me say carbon credits because I very rarely ever use that word. And I have my own, long-standing opinion on carbon credits, offset markets, and this, and of course, it's a challenging thing that we could go deep into the rabbit hole on. And general take is, unless you're building in obsolescence into your carbon market mechanisms, then you're actually not doing anything except perpetuating the system, right? So you have to build in the obsolescence if you are going into that, using that as a financial mechanism. But you won't hear me talk about carbon credits much. Indeed, in our drawdown assessment, we never ever used carbon credits as a financial mechanism in the implementation of solutions. And that was by intention because of my personal take on that. So, you won't hear me say that often, though we will learn about it. So there is a session in the course about responsible carbon markets and sort of understanding how to build an obsolescence to existing systems. Because we also have to recognize that we can't snap our fingers and pull a lever and tomorrow everything is going to change. So you have to figure out how we're working with systems, with where people are at, where organizations are at now. And I'm almost going to ask any of the fellows to say this, but what's the tagline? Meet them where they're at, but don't leave them there. And so how do we actually find ways and mechanisms to understand like where organizations, companies, and systems are now and walk them to a regenerative future? Now, so you won't have any of that. In terms of the SDGs, well, one of the core mission of Regen Intel is the helping develop and create the RGGs, the Regenerative Development Goals, as a new framework. And in fact, in 2018, during my drawdown talk, I ended with that very line. We have to go beyond climate, beyond sustainability. We need new global goals beyond climate, beyond sustainability, towards regeneration, and along the way, reverse global warming. Because when we set those goals and targets to be real regenerative goals and targets, and I won't take up the space because that's a long discussion, and it's actually something that's in co-creation right now. We're actually planning a book launch, book next year on the regenerative development goals. But beyond that, creating those metrics and mechanisms to understand and embed regenerative principles into the goals and targets we're having and have real actionable real world targets and goals is essential. SDGs don't do it. And you'll learn about this in the course, but of course it is still a framework that many organizations operate on. So how do you meet people where they're at, understand that they're working within a sustainability framework, are working in the sustainable development goal framework, and then understand like, well, actually you can multi-solve with the right set of solutions for climate. If done in the right way, you can achieve all of the SDGs, which we often teach and talk about, which is about reducing harm. But you can also use that same set of solutions in the right way, embedded with regenerative principles, to create more regenerative approaches. So these are also can be regenerative technologies and practices across the board. does exist. It's how you implement solutions and creating and embedded with regenerative principles, which is really a core part of the course itself as we go through. So Mark, I mean, it's a challenging question. It's not an easy answer. Obviously, we're putting our heads together on how to work on that. But I do believe strongly that if we believe that we're gonna, wave a magic wand and change everything overnight, then I think we won't actually get anywhere. So we have to create the marker on the horizon of the future we want, then sit with the reality of where we are today, and then walk the path to get there. And that's kind of what the course is about, and Regen Intel in generally, how we walk towards that in the most effective, efficient, and provides the most benefit, the most regenerative cascading benefits.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah.
I appreciate you addressing that. One more thing just to plant a seed and get a little clarity on is, when I think about even the SDGs, if you focus on just one goal, which is the smart cities and communities, I believe it's goal 11, and you called it wise, regenerative, and resilient cities and communities. And you really start looking at doing that one goal right, we actually can incorporate all 17 in that one goal. And I'm wondering if you're looking at, an integrated and holistic way of addressing the regenerative development goals, as opposed to coming up with another 17.
Again, going into it's a framework we're in the process of designing. It will be definitely weaving a lot of the drawdown solutions framework approach and kind of really specific technologies practices alongside inner development goals, alongside taking pieces of the SDGs that work. And of course, we're all multi-solvers. And so what you're talking about, Mark, is, and we also talk a lot about this with the prism of solutions. Multi-solving allows us, when you look at the polycrisis and the embedded metacrisis, the polycrisis, the manifestation of a metacrisis, but when you look at the different facets of it, you can approach whether it's smart cities and built environment, and you can find the same sets of solutions that are addressing many challenges. Whether you're looking at it from a climate perspective, or you're looking from a health perspective, you're looking from a variety of different perspectives, whether that lens is. And so you can see these different vantage points if you do that well. If you do a health and well-being right as an SDG goal, that in of itself you can have all the right set of solutions, because health and well-being were the security and health of children. I was just at UNICEF a couple months ago talking about children. If you just do that premise and never use the word climate, you can find the same sets of solutions in order to ensure the best outcome for children around the world. Is often the same sets of solutions. Of course, they matters where you are in the world and place. But thank you, Mark. I want to make sure we give time to some other questions. So there's, I think there was
more for me. Thank you, Chad.
Nee. I think Nee was a name I saw with her hand up.
Hey, I just put my hand down because I typed it in the chat. I wasn't sure if we'd get some time.
Let's ask.
Okay, all right. So I was wondering, in terms of the actual coursework / structure, what has been created or developed to help us apply the knowledge and the frameworks that you're talking about into real world solutions? Because we're currently still constrained, right, by the capitalistic nature of our economy and the way that governments, well, don't really govern. And so I'm wondering, how we apply all of this great knowledge and holistic knowledge into real world solutions that would make an impact today, or at least lay down that infrastructure for later.
Well, I mean, one of the things, that's a really great question. One of the things to bear in mind with any approach to regenerative systems and solutions is understanding that it has to be bioregional and place-based. The same sets of solutions aren't going to be the same sets of solutions in every place. We talk about these global solutions, and I mean, we outline about 100 of them for climate, and there are many more than just the 100 that we outlined. Those are just the ones that global scale we can identify and group together. But there are many solutions, and all of them are going to be different in place. And so it's what we try to learn is more about how you are equipped with the right tools to identify and understand the right sets of solutions at scale that are going to have that kind of impact that you're talking about in terms of the real world solutions. In part, that's covered in some ways with our solutions in practice. Obviously, there's only 15 weeks, and I think X number of, I don't remember off the top of my head how many solutions in practice there are, but there are some of those are really about sort of real world solutions, whether that's a tech platform that is helping bring people together at community to implement solutions, or it's a financial mechanism, or it's again, like I said, there's a lot of solutions in practice that have to do with your own personal development. So there's like a range of different kinds of approaches there. This isn't going to be your one-stop shop to say, oh, I'm going to go through this course and now I know exactly how to pull that lever, because there are lots of levers to pull. It matters where you are in the world and the context in which you're operating. So it's more important to understand what are the tools that are at hand? What are the levers that you have agency to pull? And of course, how to build them, how to build the framework, and how to, using the lever analogy, which isn't always a good one because it's so mechanistic, but I mean, building the machine where the levers are there, like how do you create that system of solutions at scale? A lot of that's there. But again, we don't do everything. So we do have a masterclass on governance, regenerative governance. We do have a masterclass on regenerative finance. We've had, David Carlin, Chidi Obihara, Tom Chi is speaking this year on our finance. We've had governance. We have a masterclass on communication, advocacy, and activism. And we have one on business with Ruth Andrade from Lush. So there's we do these examples of how to pull levers and how to embody regenerative leadership within these different types of stakeholder areas or industries. But we obviously can't do everything all at once in 15 weeks. So we do our best to try to give you a foundation in that, the tools, the platform, community. And then as we develop the next tiers, we'll do more and more deeper dives into different pieces of that, particularly around policy, finance. We're going to be doing a whole stewardship course, which is geared towards diving deeper into those different levels. So more SUNY, but great question. Wilfred, we got a hand raised there.
Okay, this is Wilfred, and I'm from Uganda. I've been actually applying to attend the regenerative course. But sometimes I get kicked out by my bank because it fails to pay international payments. But anyways, I'm very, very much interested, and I've been reading a few things here and there. But I wanted to know, because when the earth, maybe say it was created, or it was given birth, it has grown, and there is also post-growth, and there is degrowth. How are these things incorporated in your course? And then the second question is, are there some regenerative workspaces already established all over the world, anywhere in the world? So those are my two questions.
One question is about growth, post-growth, degrowth. I'm not trying to understand the second question. So may have to ask that one again. What we learn is a new kind of growth paradigm that I coined, but I think I don't know, I'm sure other people have thought about it as well at the same time, but a regrowth economy. So instead of this kind of degrowth, post-growth, endless growth economy, why don't we start thinking about a regrowth economy? How do we build in the structure of economic systems that allow us to constantly regrow with the same inputs, resources, a little bit more beyond a circular economy. It would be sort of a synonym for a regenerative economy. But I think the paradigm of post-growth and degrowth, while I would argue that a regrowth economy has a lot of the same characteristics, I think the language around degrowth or post-growth is something that can be quite isolating for a lot of folks. And so when we're trying to get more people on board a reducing consumption, changing the production, supply chains, etc., speaking language that is not distancing and confusing is one of the goals of the course. So I often talk about this regrowth economy. I thought maybe Richard, do you mind popping in and saying a little bit about your perspective? Because Richard is our fellow who's also
Yeah,
deep
of
into the
course.
degrowth world, you know.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So first of all, I would say, Wilfred, if you want to connect with me, I'm always happy to talk to people who are in the interested in that space. So I'm happy to talk about that outside of this as well. Yeah, I guess I have become quite a degrowth, post-growth kind of activist in many ways over the last few months or a year or so, and I still think that is a core part of the solution we need. During the course, I found that it was really good to bring these topics up with a lot of the instructors, because I think a lot of them maybe are aligned with that way of thinking in many ways, but maybe are hesitant to use the terms, because very often the term degrowth is sort of interpreted maybe badly by certain people in particular contexts, as Chad just said. And in fact, I don't know who here may or may not know about the term, but it's meant to be a defocusing on growth rather than a reduction in things, although it may require that as well. But in the spirit of maybe leading a healthier lifestyle means that you eat less of certain things and more of others. It's sort of, that's the spirit of it. I actually found that I came into the course feeling quite frustrated and angry and a little bit demotivated about the possibilities of implementing degrowth strategies in various situations. And I found that the process of the course gave me a little bit of grounding to figure out how to not compromise on what I would like to do, but find practical ways of doing it, right? And of course, that wasn't necessarily the fact that, in some cases, that was just the fact that it was, an expert on energy who knows like Joao Pedro, who was the energy person teaching us about how parts of that works. He was so knowledgeable. He and I don't really see eye to eye on the kind of like degrowth matter, but because he knows the details so well, it was so informative and useful to be able for me to be able to say, oh, that's how it works. That's why people are doing this. And then you can go and say, well, this is how I go and change their mind, or something. Sorry, maybe I rambled on a bit too much there, but it's a fascinating topic. I found the course very useful in that respect.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
I want to go through some of these other questions that are being surfaced in the chat. Also, feel free to raise your hand, but I'm going to go through a couple of these quickly. Nee also asked, is it a lifetime fellowship lifetime like Kashaka? No, it's so we offer two pathways. Well, you're a fellow for life after you go through the program, of course. And there are two pathways. We have an advanced track and a standard track that's kind of catered towards the amount of time that you have available, given your obviously very busy work schedule, busy life schedule, etc. Hopefully you're having a better, spending more life time together than work time. We will really encourage you to spend time focusing on life than on just on work. But anyway, we try to create these two pathways to allow you to some flexibility. So the standard one requires less time requirements and has less engagement post-course. You get about 6 months of access to the platform on the standard path, and you get a standard certificate, and it's just less amount of work that goes into it. If you're on the advanced track, you get 18 months of access to the platform, and that means you get to attend all the new sessions that come out, because we also have 28 speakers, or instructors, but we get new instructors coming in with new topics every cohort. So there's some cycle that goes through that. So you get access to the platform for 18 months as an advanced track fellow. You do more work, you're required to attend more sessions, you have more assignments, et cetera, et cetera. You also get a mentor. So there's like different tracks you can go on. But you become, once you join the family, what do you say? Once you join the family at Regen Intel, you stay part of the family. As you can see, 7 fellows are on this call now. And many more, and actually more than that, because we have Saeed and Tracy as well. Oh, and Rachel's here. Oh, hi, Rachel. Rachel's a current cohort 3 fellow. Yeah, nice to see you, Rachel. Current fellow, beautiful. So yeah, so it's not exactly lifetime in the sense that you have access to the platform forever, but you can use the resources for that long. Janice says, how much does the course focus on collaborative approaches? I have to leave 11. Oh, she's probably already left. Yeah, so we always say on your quest is something that's really deeply personal to you that you want to create in the world, but that could be something that is brand new into the world. That could be something that's part of the organizations that you already are at. So you could be kind of like an entrepreneur. How do you input solutions or create something within the organization you're currently operating in? But as we also always say on your climate quest, one of the best things you can do is look around and link arms with others. So we have climate quests that people end up sharing. So you have multiple people. Like if you find somebody who's doing a quest that's aligned with what you also want to do, you join forces and you create a quest, a group climate quest. And we call these parties of action. And in fact, our second tier that we're designing, the Regen Intel Solutionist course, is really how do we take your climate quest or quest to the next level and create more and more parties of action. So more collaborative approaches to moving forward together rather than on your own. So that's yes, definitely collaborative approaches, and we encourage folks to find and seek out partners within the course to do shared quests if it works. I think we have Janavi. Janavi, is that correct? Would you like to ask your question and then?
Yeah, it's John B. Yeah. Nice to meet you all, and thanks for sharing all the details and walking us through the course. I had a question on how the structure of the course would look like. I'm assuming it's going to be all virtual. And also another question was, my background has been in sustainability design strategy. So I learned from a consultation point of view, how do you understand systems thinking? How do we understand, sustainability and beyond sustainability? Also, when you talk about, working in systems and complexity, and also have a little background in strategic foresight and permaculture. So was trying to think like, for a person like me, if I take up the course in Legion Intel, should I do like a foundation course, or is it necessary to do foundation in order to do advance, or how should I perceive it? So,
Well, it's a really good question, Janavi, my
Janvi?
Janvi,
Yes, yes.
Janvi. So it's a good question, Janvi. And it's an answer only you can find, because again, we have in our current cohort, we've had one of our fellows has been a chief sustainability officer at a major or a corporate sector for 25 years. We've had folks who've taken regenerative economics courses and permaculture courses and would consider themselves to be at the well, because they've taken those courses, they would always be very humble and modest and say that they're right in the average knowledge base. But the reality is they're on that, the higher end of the knowledge base in those areas. And we've also had folks who've never taken a climate class and never do not work in sustainability, and they're pivoting into it. Like I think Megan was mentioning, that's kind of a little bit of her profile. Whereas Bjorn would argue that Bjorn had a lot of experience in sustainability and systems thinking. And Paul already was deeply knowledgeable about permaculture, just as an examples. And of course, Alessandra is a designer. So it doesn't really matter where you are on your journey. You will they're here because they found great value in the course, wherever they are on their journey, whether you're 30 years in and you like think you know everything, or maybe you do know everything, you'll still probably learn a lot in terms of the mindset shifts, in terms of the community. Jessica Grootman is another great example who has taken a lot of the courses. She's been a sustainability consultant for, major companies and brands for many, many years. She took our course and now she's on stage at Sustainable Brands, keynoting about her climate quest. So, there's lots of, doesn't matter where you are on your journey, you will find some value in it. If you stick through, which is to say, majority of our fellows do stay on, but there's always been an occasional one too. We're also flexible. We have some, after a couple of weeks, if you're feeling, Janvi, that you're way more advanced for this and you've already done all this work, then you can also say, no, I'd like to back out at this point. But we encourage you to stay in anyway, because from experience, those who have that deep expertise still come out as Regen Intel Fellows for life. We have this thing like Regen Intel for life as like a hashtag. And so you probably will find value again wherever you are.
Sure.
But we
Thank
offer
you.
opportunities if you feel really deeply like this isn't working, or like you know after the first couple of weeks and you're like, nah, I already know all this. We have a refund policy that you can back out at that point.
No, my
for a certain
question
amount.
was more about the structure. So I
Oh.
completely feel like when you talk about regenerative design, it's much beyond. So I was just trying to understand, like, someone from such a background, how do we perceive or how the structure looks like, basically?
My recommendation was taking the advanced course. I mean, you probably don't need the standard if you already have that, because the value of the advanced is that you get a lot more interaction with our team. You get a mentor assigned to you that's part of our cosmos of stars. So Regen Intel also represents an ecosystem of over 100 thinkers and doers. We accept no talkers. We accept no takers. It's part of the part of the official requirement is no talking, no taking. Only real thinkers and doers. What we mean by that is people who are really creating ideas and really applying them and doing work in the world in an authentic way. So we have 100 of them in our cosmos, and so they're mentors. We assign you to some amazing folks in our cosmos as part of that mentorship. So I think people tend to find a lot more value in the advanced course. If you have that some background already, you'll get more out of it from doing all the assignments and extra stuff. Okay. Other questions? Yoshi, I know you were popping some out. Do you want to come on? Are there any ones that you want to read out for us? You were popping a few.
Question from Kelsey Starnes. Did we answer that yet? What are some of the biggest challenges faced during the cohort, and how did the facilitators or community offer support in overcoming them? Mamta gave a little bit of an answer there, which I can read out. We regularly hold meet and greet sessions every Friday and offer group and individual office hours with the facilitators. We also organize the inter-cohort gatherings on a regular basis. These have helped resolve any challenges fellows have encountered during the course. Besides that, our team is always available to respond to queries via email.
Beautiful. Does any fellow, perhaps former, past, or current fellow, want to comment a bit on this, and from your own perspective, what were some of the challenges that you experienced as part of this program, and maybe how you felt they were, overcome, or anything? I guess it could also be, content related or even logistics or something that you noticed. Ale, your hand's raised.
Yes. So yeah, just piggybacking a bit on what Mamta also shared. So for me, I was fairly new when I joined Regen Intel to regenerative systems thinking and solutions. And one way that I found that was really helpful was, besides the sessions, having the meet and greets on Fridays. They're optionals, but still they're very helpful to not only connect with the community, but then also in the sessions, there are breakout sessions as well, where you have the chance to digest more of the content with your peers. So that's something that I found to be quite helpful in guiding me through my journey. And yes, I feel Rachel could also echo this from cohort 3 as well, and a few other fellows who have found these meet and greets in communities, as well as other extra sessions as well, to be quite helpful in supporting. And Yoshi's hand is raised.
Yeah, I can also speak to it a little bit as well. Just for a little bit of background, I joined Regen Intel after leaving 2.5 years on a 44-hectare regenerative city project. And so I was so hungry for everything that the program had to offer. And there was so much there. I found it took a little bit more time for me personally because I really, really dove quite deep into it. And the office hours on the advanced path were really, really helpful for just integrating and understanding. And then again, echoing what both Mamta and Ali said about the meet and greets, and that community support was quite incredible. There are some group projects as well, which I really enjoyed, and being able to connect deeper with your fellows and find those connection points to dive deeper, to digest information, to brainstorm and explore and share notes and research was really helpful for me in that absorption process.
Thank you
Any
all.
other
I
shares?
just wanted to hop on and say thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelsey. Good question. Kova, you look like you were trying to raise a hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Kova. I got sent here by Marley Benedicto. She said that this group of people was having a similar conversation that I'm having, and I'm not finding many of those people very often until this very moment. So I just want to say shout out to her and say thank you for the introduction. And I did just go ahead and briefly talk about what I'm working on in the chat. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see that yet, please go ahead and check that out. My name is Kova, and I'm someone who is a system thinker, but I also have the same perspective. It's like, what are the levers? And yes, I am thinking mechanically of what are the greatest levers that we can push that would affect the most amount of change specifically. So my life's work is specifically work with individuals like that, both internally, externally, to create that tangible exponential growth. And I'm in the beginning process of that right now. So Marley sent me over here because she was like, you need to know the things that they're that they're learning at the moment. So I'm really grateful to be here. I just pulled up a lot of your guys' LinkedIn, so you'll be hearing from me, mostly just to have conversations and pick your brain. Mostly I'm going to listen to you and see what comes from that. So stay tuned for invitations from me, and I look forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you, Kova. Really a pleasure to meet you. A friend of Marley is a friend of ours, of course. Marley's also a Regen Intel Fellow from cohort 1, I believe. Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks, Kova. We also have a really great question here about Indigenous perspectives on regeneration, and the answer is yes. I mean, I've been working myself with Indigenous peoples for 16 years. Actually, that's my entry point into climate has from an Indigenous working with Indigenous peoples' rights and well-being, environmental conservation, and sustainable development. And so all the programs and work that we do is really incorporating and weaving in together Indigenous ways of knowing as well as non-Indigenous ways, Western, as they call Western, or colonist or dominant approaches, as well as Indigenous perspectives. Our first masterclass is always taught by Dr. Lila June Johnston, amazing Indigenous scientist and musician, on the foundations of regenerative systems from an Indigenous perspective. So to answer Robert's question, it's very much grounded in that. We also run a project called Project Peoples, which is a similar project to Project Drawdown, except it's all derived from Indigenous people's wisdom and done in co-creation with Indigenous solutionists from all over the world. And so that's definitely, we weave all of that knowledge and ways of knowing into the work we do at Regen Intel as a whole, and certainly through the Regen Intel course, where there's a few sessions that are led by Indigenous peoples, Indigenous solutionists and leaders. Thank you for that question, Robert. It's so important too. And also to be doing it from a very authentic space. We know that a lot of folks are weave in or try to weave in Indigenous knowledge, and sometimes it can be flat if it's not really done with authenticity and integrity. And so the work that we do, and I should say this about all of our sessions as well, is that when you take these sessions, you learn from the person. This is not this is no dialogue with me and Lila June. This is Lila June's imparting of wisdom onto the course. It's Renee Lertzman's, it's Catherine Hayhoe's, and so it's very much holding the space for each instructor to really weave their perspective and knowledge into the tapestry that is the course. So which is I think somewhat unique in a lot of the other courses as well, from a lot of the courses as well.
Do you coordinate with people like the Pioneers who've been doing stuff like this for 35 years?
Well, of course, we know Pioneers for a long time. Yes, absolutely. My old friend, colleague Paul Hawken used to be there all the time. And Janine Benyas and the whole crew, a lot of the folks from Pioneers are dear friends and colleagues. Indeed, one of our fellows, Anna Steltenkamp from cohort 1 or 2, I believe. Yeah, she works with Pioneers right now as a coordinator. So yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions are popping onto people's mind? Would like to ask? This is real course centric. So how long do we have? I always forget how long we're supposed to be on. Are we at time, past time, or we have more time?
Are at time.
We are at time. Okay. Well, that's a good a reason to close this session. Thank you all for joining us. Great questions. They were deeply insightful questions, actually, and hope this was helpful for you in navigating, whether you'd like to join this community through the course, or even just partner in any way that you'd like to. We'd love to stay into contact. I love that the flow of LinkedIn links are going on the chats. It's not often you see that, so it feels like this is already a community starting to form. Really lovely to be here with you all today, and we'll be having more AMAs over the course of these next months. So if you do have any other additional questions, feel free to jump on to one of those or email us, and there's a link in the chat that will direct you to the website. I would encourage you to apply as soon as possible. We're filling up spots, and would love to see you if you can at the next cohort. Okay. Well, thank you. Oh, we'll say a word of. Let's pass it on to you. Actually,
Okay, great. So as usual, we would love to end with a word of gratitude. So if you could please turn your cameras on and go off mute and on camera. And please share a word of gratitude in English or your language of choice. So thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good to see
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.